Hello everyone, reporting today for Fun Robotics Network, I'm Abhas, and with me here is none other than Team 14270, Quantum Robotics from Romania. They're your #1 OPR team coming into the Houston World Championship, Romania Nationals winning alliance captain, and they just have one of the most clever intake, transfer, sorting, shooting systems that I've seen in Decode. Everyone has to watch this behind the bot. I can't wait to jump into it, coming up. All right, guys, so I want to start just directly with the intake. Walk me through this very wide front bar first, what you're using on all of these different wheels and why.
So yeah, firstly, we have right here the vector wheels and right here the gecko, and this is an animark wheel. Firstly, how we did the intake, we had a few slotted plates right here because we thought that with the compression right here, as you can see, firstly the compression needs to be lower and then higher, so it compresses the wheel and goes faster into the robot. After that, the intake is based on like asymmetric plates. So as you can see right here, firstly, this wheel is much bigger than the gecko wheels. So firstly, this ball will go into the intake. After that, the other balls. So it's like an order.
Yeah, can we just intake 3 artifacts
sure.
all at once? That would be fantastic. Wow, just look at that. I mean, it's so magical and it's so smooth.
Before we get to our next segment, we'd like to thank the following. Decode Robotics is inspiring teams to build better robots with their new array of FTC team options. Check out their updated bevel gears and Maverick hex shaft motors, Planetary gearbox options, and 6mm hex components and shafts for extreme power transmission. Go to Studica.com/robots to learn more and apply for discounts. Kettering University's cutting-edge programs in their experiential co-op model seamlessly blend the professional and academic worlds, offering hands-on, future-focused learning that empowers students to pursue new ideas and inspires other institutions to follow their lead. Don't just be ahead of the curve, create the curve. Get more information at kettering.edu/first.
Now I want to talk about the transfer, if we can get these artifacts taken out while we go over there. You guys have just such an interesting transfer overall. Let's start with all of the axles that are powered in that transfer. Walk me through those.
Yeah, so our entire transfer is powered by a 1620 RPM Gobilda motor with a ratio of 28 to 23, achieving 2000 RPM. And it's basically divided into 2 parts, the intaking part and the transfer part. Firstly, one motor powers the intake shaft and these 2 gecko shafts, and the other motor is powering this conveyor shaft with 2 other geckos into just below the shooter.
Awesome. Yeah, so just to be clear, you guys are running 1 motor intake, 1 motor transfer.
Yes. Also, the transfer one is optimized so that once the first artifact is collected, the motor stops. We have a beam brake sensor here which detects once the first ball is collected. The motor stops, and this prevents the motor from stalling, and it improves voltage consumption.
Yeah, talking a little bit about this front belt system that you have over here. I mean, you guys are the first team. I've always wanted to see someone implement this, but you guys are the first team I've seen do this season. Did you do it all the way from day one, or did you add it later in the season, and why?
Yes, so we added the belt system because it is necessary for our sorting subsystem.
Okay.
We iterated without it, but it wasn't as smooth.
Okay.
As we did.
Awesome. Yeah, you've hinted at it. Let's talk about that sorting subsystem now. This is just absolutely insane. I want to get a really good demo of this. So right now you guys have purple, green. Walk me through what's going to happen now.
So first of all, this active hood is going to open up, followed by this power arm, which is also going to open to allow the shooting of the artifacts back into the robot.
Yeah.
As kind of a vertical spin dexter.
Let's see it work. Just wow, right? Like, that's so incredible. Now, is this all done? Is this all done autonomously, or is it driver controlled? How do you guys do this?
This is driver control.
Yeah, if we can just see it keep going and going, that would be awesome. So is it all like timer based? Does the driver just hold the intake button for a certain amount of time, or how do they do that?
So this is just autonomous. The driver just activates a button, and it just timers and sensors from the beam brake.
Awesome, that's so cool. When did you guys implement this?
So I think we implemented it between regionals and nationals, and we used it in the nationals championship once.
Awesome. Yeah, and hopefully we'll see
Yeah.
more action from it at the World Championship. But it's just so clever how you guys have done this. Let's talk a little bit about that power arm that you said you have here. Walk me through the design. Anything you think teams can learn from with that?
So since we want to implement a sorting subsystem that wouldn't actually affect us during our normal cycles, we decided to implement this power arm that can act like a normal conveyor during normal cycles, which we complete in 4 seconds, but can also lift during sorting. We are using 4 32mm geckos that are all attached to the intake transmission.
Yeah, I mean, the active transfer is just so brilliant. One concern I would have with the servo is the torque on it in order to keep it down. Was that a concern you guys have? And if so, how did you address it?
Yeah, so we did have a problem with the torque on the power arm on the first iteration of our sorting subsystem, where due to the very tight clearance in this place, the artifact would get stuck right here, and the servo would stall while trying to push the ball down and enter its failsafe mode. On the second iteration, to solve that, we actually moved the power arm a little bit back and to provide the power arm more leverage on the artifact, and modified its ratio to have more torque on the artifact itself.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. The last question I want to ask you guys about the transfer and everything is all of the grip tape that I see along it. I've talked to teams that they say they prefer more of a smooth surface or as little contact as possible, but clearly you guys have a lot of grip and you want as much contact as possible. Why?
Yeah, so we also iterated with out grip tape or a smoother surface, but the main point is that the ball is itself not very grippy, and we want to cancel that out by having geckos on top and something to keep it sturdy under.
I see. Now let's talk about your guys' turret. Some of the things, to me, the turret just moves so quickly. Let's start with the actuators you're using. How many servos are you using to power this turret?
For our turret, we use 2 Axon Max servos that are geared to a 1-to-1 final ratio.
I see. And, is there anything special you guys are doing with these gears to make sure they're stronger or less backlash? What are you doing there?
Yes, for our 3D printed gear, we use a herringbone style of gear. And in order to minimize the wear of the gear itself, we have a steel 6mm triangle insert in order to disperse the force of the shooter.
Was that something you guys added later in the season, or did you have that all the way from the beginning?
Yes, at our Romanian regionals, we had an issue because in between matches we had to constantly change our 3D printed gear. In order to fix this for nationals, we implemented the steel.
Awesome. And you guys haven't had to replace that gear since then?
Not once.
Fantastic. So talking a little bit also about the bearing stack and everything, what are you using for the bearing in your turret?
Yes, for our turret, we are using an X-contact bearing because at the start of the season, we iterated with bearing stack and Lazy Susan. However, the bearing stack was too high in height and the Lazy Susan was too wide. In order to fix this, we paid a better price and bought ourselves the X-contact bearing.
Awesome. Yeah. Another thing I want to ask about is your guys' wiring. I think wiring is a challenge that every team has. How have you guys addressed that, and how much range do you have in your turret?
So we have about 250 degrees, almost, but not entirely 360, because we had a problem where our servos went to the other side, so we had a position 0.9 and it just wrapped around the other side and stalled. But yeah, we tried to minimize how much the cable extends outside the robot, because that's a hazard and other teams can damage the cables inside.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into the shooter now. So you guys are running these very compact belted motors over here. Did you have this all the way from the beginning of the season, or was this a change you made for Worlds?
No, so up until the regionals we had the motors in the back of the shooter, but after we decided to implement sorting subsystem, we needed to make the shooter's footprint a lot smaller, so we decided to implement this the motors much closer to the shooter.
I see.
Flywheel.
And have you guys had any issues with vibration or anything like that, or has that been all fine with this system?
Yeah, we did actually have a lot of problems with vibrations, actually very close to the Romanian nationals. in which our pinpoint heading would drift a lot
Mhm.
due to the shooter flywheel generating a lot of vibrations. But after we we actually centered the flywheels at a special machine, and yeah, most of our problems got solved. We also
can you talk about that a little more? How did you guys make sure your flywheels were perfectly centered?
Yeah, so actually we first before this we had our flywheels mounted directly to the Gobilla Rhino, but we noticed after multiple iterations that it actually wasn't that perfect. The mounting of on the Gobilla Rhino, it had a lot of imperfections. But after that we decided to mount them directly to the shaft with some mounting plates, and we actually precisely balanced them on a lathe, so the offsets were much smaller.
Awesome. So that was just like turning the outside profile down.
Yeah,
just so
yeah.
it was smooth. Okay, very cool. Now talk to me a little bit about the pinpoint. How did you guys reduce the vibration effects on that pinpoint?
So we actually implemented some dampening by adding a TPU insert on which the pinpoint sits on, and mainly by minimizing the flywheel vibrations.
Got it. Talking a little bit about your hood as well. You guys have a very wide hood, or a very wide gear also on the back of this hood. Why is it like that?
Yeah, so throughout the iterations we made, we realized that the surface area the artifact acts upon is very important to actually have a minimal RPM drop and efficient power transfer from the flywheel itself to the artifact. So the shots and grouping would be as consistent as possible.
And did you guys you clearly don't have a counter roller shooter? Was that something you tried and you decided you didn't need, or why do you not have a counter roller shooter now?
Yeah, we actually tested an implementation of a counter roller in which we had the power rollers at the end of the tilting stage. But we observed that it would add a lot of strain on the transmission itself, and it wasn't really worth it since we focused more on the closed zone shooting.
Yeah,
style.
that makes complete sense. Now, talking a little bit about software, your guys' shooting on the move method is very, very effective. Walk me through how you're able to get it to be so consistent.
So for each interpolated lookup table, we take the time of flight and then we recursive just reiterate till the new distance is stable by using a fixed Newton method that calculates the convergence rate.
I see. Talking a little bit about how long that takes in the software itself, how quickly are these loops running? Is it at all a concern on your loop times?
So we actually used it to reduce the time that these loops is, because if we didn't use it, the loops will continue running until it will be stable. So this actually it's an efficiency, this is optimization.
I see. Okay, very cool. And as far as anything else in the shooting on the move, is there things you think teams can learn from you guys in making it as consistent as you have it?
I think it's just very important to filter the velocity and acceleration, because the input can be very noisy.
So how are you guys filtering it?
We use a low pass filter.
Okay, and what is your cutoff frequency, or you think that's just something teams need to tune?
Yeah, it just needs to tune base, because the robot might accelerate very fast or very slow, so it's just based on the robot.
Yeah, so you're just calculating the acceleration directly by differentiating the velocity, or anything else special?
No, we just use we take the current velocity and the last velocity and we
divide by the time. Okay, yeah, awesome. Now, talking a little bit about driver practice and driving in general, your guys' driving is, just on another level as compared to all the teams here. How are you able to drive so well, and what advice do you have for teams?
Advice, just practice. I mean, I've spent hours and hours each day in the lab. I've helped during the construction of the robot. Each day, if we needed to do maintenance, anything broke, or we fixed it very fast. And then I just kept going back practicing, just doing as many cycles as possible at the gate. So basically what benefits me during a match.
So do you guys do full matches? Do you guys just do cycles? Do you add other robots on the field or obstacles? What do you do?
We actually do the first two. We do full matches, autonomous and then tele-op, but those aren't as precise as just running a full match with other robots. So one person sits at the gate and then places as many artifacts as possible in the classifier, so then I can just cycle at the gate, because that's what I do in a real match.
Very cool. Yeah. Quantum, thank you guys so much. I mean, this robot is just so full of clever mechanisms that have come together into the highest OPR robot coming into the Houston World Championship. We can't wait to see how you guys do for the rest of the championship. Reporting for Fun Robotics Network, I'm Abhas, and this is Team 14270 Quantum Robotics. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to stay up to date on future fun videos. Kettering University's cutting-edge programs and their experiential co-op model seamlessly blend the professional and academic worlds, offering hands-on, future-focused learning that empowers students to pursue new ideas and inspires other institutions to follow their lead. Don't just be ahead of the curve, create the curve. Get more information at kettering.edu/first. Studica Robotics is inspiring teams to build better robots with their new array of FTC team options. Check out their updated bevel gears and Maverick hex shaft motors, Planetary gearbox options, and 6mm hex components and shafts for extreme power transmission. Go to studica.com/robots to learn more and apply for discounts.